What happened to
I'm
Vance?
Sean Forker, the host and executive producer of the Sasquatch Experience podcast. On behalf of myself and the Sasquatch Experience team, I'd like to make a statement regarding some recent controversy that has taken place in the Bigfoot field. Now, first, the Sasquatch Experience podcast is an informational podcast on the Sasquatch phenomena. We lend ourselves to be a legitimate source of news and entertainment regarding the ongoing search for the very same subject. The key word for us is legitimate. Recent information regarding Bob Gimlin, one half of the tracking team that filmed the infamous Patterson-Gimlin film in 1967, and that film's validity has once again come to surface. However, the claims, a supposed videotape confession regarding the legitimacy of the film, stating the film is not what people think it is, has yet to surface. The origin of these reported claims have been made by Mr. Gimlin's own manager, Russ Accord. Statements made to Richter Riolo and Steve Coles. Steve has recently covered this on his own show in the last week, and you can find that by going to his website, squatchdtv.com. Well, where do we stand? Emotionally, we'd like to stand with Bob Gimlin, a man who's been a steadfast part of the community and a good friend to many in this field. However, with recent claims and lack of any evidence to support or refute them, we're taking a neutral stance, something many in the media arm of our field would be responsible in doing themselves. While the basis of our support for the existence of the creature is supported by the Patterson-Gimlin film, our foundation has never been built on it. Should this film prove to be a hoax, we will continue on, heavy in heart but more determined to be objective and critical of the evidence. As per our mission, we will continue to keep you up to date on any facts regarding the current situation. If no facts come to light, then this controversy would be best suited to fall into obscurity, as the rest of the claims made against this film in its almost 54-year history. On behalf of myself and the Sasquatch Experience team, thanks for continuing to listen and support us. Sasquatch Experience, the podcast.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. Sean Forker, Henry May, James Baker, and Vance Nesbitt. Hey, guys, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
We're doing great. As you saw at the beginning of the episode, of course, I had to put out that disclaimer from some of this interesting situation that happened over here the last week and a half. Huh, guys? Some crazy stories coming to surface. And, of course, it's not Bigfoot community without a little controversy.
And dysfunctionality.
How about it?
Right? Yeah. A happy 4th of July, even though that was yesterday, but regardless, hope everyone was safe and had a good holiday.
Absolutely. Everybody still, well, Baker still got his fingers. I have
well, that's
mine.
Good. Right?
So
let's prove it. We're all good. Yeah.
We're all good. All right. Very good. And Henry's really good right there. But yeah, no, as we said, threw a disclaimer out there, guys, because, at some point, this issue has to come to rest, right? And sadly, it will come to rest when Bob Gimlin ultimately does. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I don't know. Being neutral about it, not because we don't support Bob, because I think anybody who listens to the show knows that we hold Bob in great esteem, and he's a real nice guy. I've met him, spent some time with Bob, good fella. Mm-hmm. But, claims like this just suck, and they hurt, and you just don't know where to stand on it.
Well, I mean, with the claims that are coming out now, and I know that you and I have discussed this, why now? If this
Yeah.
was relevant back in 2019 when we were not in any kind of a society crisis, so to speak, that would have been the time that it came up, and that would have been front page news with a lot of communities, let alone the Bigfoot community. It would have gone into all other groups and cryptids and UFO research and so on. And for it to come out now, it leads me down a path of why. And now it seems like there's more questions instead of answers. And I thought that was what we were really going after, was the answer and not more questions. So unfortunately,
I think if anybody's got anything to say about this, it's going to be Henry. You know, Henry's been in this far longer than all of us have. Henry, how do you feel about all this, man?
Well, like you guys, I'm taking a neutral stance on it. But, you know, if I were a betting man, I would bet on Bob Gimlin. If I were a betting man. That's just me. I would bet on his integrity. I would bet on his honesty. But again, I have to take a neutral stance publicly because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, objective, right? You know, we could all be wrong, and we've said that since the beginning, Henry. We've said that since the beginning. There could be a time we find out this is all a hoax, which is why I've never built the foundation of our show on the Patterson film, the foundation of my belief in Bigfoot. And it's just sad to see, but this stuff happens. And for it to come from his own manager, well, you know, there's got to be more to that story there somewhere. It's, you know, there just has to be more. And, you know, I know Steve Coles. I don't know Richter, but I know Steve Coles. And Steve's not one to stretch the truth. You know, he's just not. And but somewhere along the line, you know, the timing of all this, just there has to be a reason for it. JB, you got any thoughts?
This kind of thing bugs me because when Bob is a treasure, and when something happens to him, this is going to come out of the woodwork right and left.
Yeah.
It just feels like one of those situations that down the road we're going to find out that there was a secondary motive or whatever. Well, I just feel the man being that old and going through many years of this, and not all of them were positive towards him. There'd be a point where, look, if it was a hoax, he would have honed up to it a while ago and said, hey, you know, this isn't worth all the guff I'm getting for it. This is what really happened. You
make a really good point there, because when I was listening to an episode of Sasquatch Chronicles, yes, folks, I listen to Sasquatch Chronicle, Wes had Doug Hychick on there. And he was talking about how he had offered Bob Gimlin $1 million on tape to admit that the film was a hoax, and he didn't do it. And now you're saying that Bob said this to someone in confidence for free, you know, so when he passes away, the truth can come out. Hell, if I was Bob, I'd say I did it anyhow, just take the $1 million.
All right.
I mean, at that point, it's a lot easier to say you made the hoax and took $1 million than it is to actually do it.
Right.
And so I just have a problem with all this, and I don't want to spend too much of our time on it because there's so much to talk about, but I did think our listeners wanted our opinions on it. And we've had a little bit more time to sit on this than everyone else because we didn't react and do an editorial or anything of those sorts. We just spent some time, crafted a statement together, and decided that's the stance we want to take. Not to slight Bob or anyone else, but because we just don't know. Right. And when you don't know, you know, emotions cloud the facts. And the plain simple facts that, you know, perception is reality, right? And I don't want to cloud that reality for anyone else when we just don't know what it is. So I guess we could put our stamp on it. We know what we believe. We know what our position is. When the truth comes out, of course, we'll report on it because that's the responsible thing to do. But what we're not going to do is continue to feed into the conjecture and add more to the drama, because that's not what it's about. Lord knows we've had enough drama over this for 54 years. Time to go on for a little bit, right?
Jerry Coleman, Lauren Coleman's brother, had a very good statement about the Patterson Gimlin film from years ago. If the film is real, we pursue Bigfoot. If the film is a hoax, we pursue Bigfoot.
Damn straight. Can't deny that at all. I mean, I think that's well put.
And that's what you brought up at the very beginning too, Sean, when you made your statement that it would be with heavy heart if it's a hoax, but we will still continue.
Absolutely. We have to. Because even if the Patterson-Gimlin's fake and the majority of these sighting reports are misidentifications, if one person had a legitimate Bigfoot sighting, it's still worth it.
Right.
And that's what our job is, to sit here and comment and discover and uncover what's going on. Episode 26, What's on Our Mind, folks. Sasquatch Experience Season 3. No guests tonight, just kind of an open mic, what's on our mind topics, because we just haven't done this for a while. And this show was planned to be an open mic. Not that we didn't have a guest. We planned on this one to be that way. Of course, we apologize for not having Shane Corson last week. The heat in the Pacific Northwest wreaked havoc on the power out that way, and we didn't want to pressure Shane to feel obligated to have to do the show, so we took the opportunity to reschedule him. So he's going to come back with us in August. He didn't back out on us. I want to make that very clear. We rescheduled him out of a courtesy for him, getting the situation going on out there. Right. Record-breaking temperatures out that way, guys, and I bet you Sasquatch was sweating his balls off.
Just to say the least. Yeah,
but
to say the least.
If he was sweating his balls off, there's Dr. Squatch soap right here. That would really help with that situation. Of course, folks, you can go to our website, SasquatchExperience.com, click on the Dr. Squatch banner, and help support Sasquatch Experience. We get a little percentage of everything you put on there. So by all means, go out and do some shopping. And this week I'm using the Birchwood Breeze Medium Grit. And I tell you what, folks, that feels real nice. And on my sensitive skin, I smell good, I feel good. It's well worth it. Dr.
Nice.
Squatch. Click on the banner and support. I think you can click on it in here. I tried to make it that way. I'm getting there, folks. Bear with me. I'm getting the edge on this production yet, guys. And, of course, they can go to our Patreon. Patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience starts at $2 a month. And thanks to our Patreons that support us each and every week. Guys, what else we got tonight? You know, we did want to talk about a particular video, but an interesting piece that I found, since we are talking about, Bigfoot film, Bigfoot video, the topic that brought up, and I didn't mean to cover Henry's face or Baker, but Renee posted a tweet that she hasn't done in a while, and the tweet goes, it was written into the Finding Bigfoot contract that cast and crew would be terminated for faking evidence. This was enforced when a production member was sent home. I don't believe Bigfoot is a biological undiscovered species, but to my knowledge, our team didn't fake any evidence. And of course, that's response to some schmuck, saying how Matt went off and on viewers like some crazy Trump, whatever. But, the fact of the matter is, and that's telling to me because all these shows oftentimes are littered with claims of hoaxing stuff and making stuff up. But you can do TV with weird camera angles and fancy cuts and not hoax anything. It's all about production. The four of us could be doing everything we're supposed to be doing. James Baker dancing in the background there. And with fancy camera angles and edits, we could pretty much, make anything we want appear any way we want it to without any of the three of you guys knowing, I've done it. So it doesn't have to be hoax. I mean, and guys, we've seen just about every TV show there is. Right, Henry? You've seen about every show there is out there. Like, it doesn't have to be a hoax.
Absolutely. No, it doesn't. Now, there are those who are claiming that they're hoaxing on Expedition Bigfoot, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't know about that because I think they take great liberties on Expedition Bigfoot. I wouldn't say they're hoaxing. I do think there's some liberties taken with some scenarios, but I'm not a member of the production. I'm not intimate with anybody on the show. I don't know them. So that would be kind of, hard for me to say. Like, even the personalities. Like, we've had a relationship with Cliff. You've had a relationship with Cliff and Bobo Henry, a friendship lasting a long time. But you don't have any of those relationships, really, with anybody on the show Expedition Bigfoot. So it's kind of hard to, to say, what's on the up and up.
Yeah.
Well, the question
Absolutely.
I have is...
I think...
Go ahead, Henry.
I think Cliff and Bobo are pretty legitimate.
Yeah.
I've known them for a long time. I knew them before Finding Bigfoot. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same. Absolutely, same. And knowing Cliff's a little bit more science-oriented. I think, though, people, when you become a believer, sometimes it's hard to shake that off and present the, true scientific, like you want it to believe. And when you speak of it, you use Bigfoot as an existent creature because to you, the proof is there. Sometimes you lose that in the audience you're talking to that expects a little bit more objectivity from you. When we do a show like this, the majority of our shows cater to an audience of believers. Maybe a few skeptics here and there that listen to the show. They usually send us the hate mail. Sometimes, actually, I think the believers send us more hate mail than the skeptics. But,
right.
When you're speaking to the audience, you're speaking is because that audience is already in belief that this creature does exist, and that there's enough proof to satisfy that urge, right? That satisfy that desire and quench for all things Bigfoot. You lose that a little bit, and it just changes the tone.
Yep.
Bake, you were going to say something, and I turned the floor over to Henry. What were you going to say, bud?
Well, I don't know if we can call it hoaxing per se. I think percentages, it's kind of like when you watch Survivor or you watch one of the reality shows. You didn't exactly see what exactly went on. You saw what they wanted you to see. Yeah. It's not as much they hoax something. It's the girl that they hired, that jumped up and down because she heard a noise. Of course, they're going to put in that for ratings. But the thing is like they're not saying, oh, my God, she jumped up and down because there's a Bigfoot. They're saying she jumped up and down because boobs sell TV. Okay,
yeah.
Like if you ever watched the clip shows from like Ghost Hunters when Sci-Fi used to play it. Those guys were good and all that, but the fact is like that 60-second commercial acted like they found like the master ghost that was going to do all these horrible things, and then you watch the show and nothing,
Right.
So it's sensationalism.
It's a production value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's exactly what Vance says.
It's the hook.
It's exactly what Vance says, the hook, right? To get you to keep on through that. That channel, that commercial. But, the thing is, when streaming is becoming more of a thing, you don't have that commercial as much. So now they have to do it in more creative ways. When when you want information at your fingertips and it's coming at you at light speed, you really got to have that quick catch, that hook to keep you fixated. I know there were shows I used to watch regularly that I try to watch now and I get bored with, just because the format is a lot different than what we're used to now. Right, the world of instant entertainment and instant information, you really got to do something to stand out and stay attractive in this field. As we talk about four, middle-aged guys, two more svelte than the other of us. We're not exactly the the attractive demographic, but what we make up for in looks, we have in charm and finesse. And Henry May, the Bigfoot encyclopedia. Nobody else has a Henry May. We've got a Henry May.
Yeah,
$2, you can get all the Henry May you want.
That's right.
Henry May is our hook.
Henry's our hook. Speaking of hook, we've been putting them out there on the Sasquatch Experience Classics. We are in works with Blog Talk Radio to retrieve our archive, since Forker can't seem to find the archive anywhere in Casa de Fork Chop. And slowly we're starting to get some episodes back, but we may not get them all, which is a travesty. If anybody out there is listening to the new shows and happens to have any archives of our old shows, let us know, squatchexperience@gmail.com. And we'd like to get those back so we can promote them and rerun them for folks that may not have had the ability to hear them in the past. Guys, Squatch Experience, I feel a little bad for using the term Squatch Experience after I watched an episode of Bigfoot Today with Stephen Major and Thomas Seawood. Squatch is kind of a pejorative term, and we've been using it kind of offhand, and I didn't realize it. And I feel bad, but the email's the email, so I don't really change it. But I just want to put it out there. We don't mean it in a pejorative term. It's just meant as a quick... well, actually, we only use it because I don't remember the password to sasquatchexperience@gmail.com, and I don't know how to reset it, and so that's why the...
But how do you abbreviate Sasquatch? Squatch! It's one syllable, and I think that's all it was meant originally anyway.
Yeah, like I don't want anybody to think that we're putting it down or we're disrespecting native traditions or anything of that sort. It just happens. It's catchy. The intent is not ill, and if some way down the road we can find a way to rectify that, then by all means, of course, we will, because it's all about respect, not just for us, but to the listeners and to the big fella himself. Don't want to leave anybody out there and have them think that we're just being disrespectful. I don't mean to go off on a tangent there. I just want to make that position clear. And it's a What's on Our Mind show tonight. We really got to talk about things that's on our mind. Henry, you got anything on your mind in particular that you're thinking of right now?
Well, I just started on a book by Charles Edson, a rare book, which goes for like $300, which would go for like $300 to $500 on Amazon. I managed to get it for less than $150 on eBay.
Nice. On eBay, wow, that's awesome.
And it's a good book so far, although he does talk quite a bit about having multiple sightings. And usually when somebody says they have multiple sightings, usually alarm bells start ringing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, in reading the book, have you gotten far enough in the book to hear all his sightings, or he's just made claims he's had a couple so far? You haven't read them yet.
Well, I've read up to where he says he's had 8 to 9. He had 8 to 9 sightings.
That's a lot.
That's going to start, yeah.
You start getting into Carterland there when you start having that many, and my flags are going to go off, and then I'm going to get quartered at a Bigfoot conference by her again. But
when was that written, Henry? What year?
1979.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Now, do you think, guys?
It describes his encounters for a 15-year period from 1952 to 1967.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, that was my question. Now, do you think that because the book was written that long ago, that before a lot of this, mainstream Sasquatch, hit even television, that's pre-documentary days, really. That's almost pre-Boggy Creek in a sense. Maybe that adds a little bit more validity to it. I don't know. Right. You didn't hear a lot about that, at least reported in those days, about multiple sightings at that time. Now, that is a little bit more interesting than, let's just say, the guy wrote the book in 2017.
Right.
Do you get the old-timey feel?
Of those areas, right.
Yeah. Do you get the old-timey feel from the book when you read it, Henry?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like from a time almost forgotten.
Now, have you noticed anything else interesting in the book? Was there any behavioral things he notated that you can read in that book that didn't pop into light in our world until much later?
Well, his one thing that he talked about is the fact that he believed that they did not mean humans any harm, but they don't like equipment. They don't like equipment like metal stuff. They don't like rifles. They don't like cameras. They don't like logging equipment. He was in a truck. He claims he was in a truck, and he claims the Sasquatch came and ran and started beating on the truck.
That's interesting.
Not to do anything to him, but because it didn't like the truck.
Henry, where do the majority of his encounters take place?
This is in California, Northern California.
So that's Bluff Creek, right? Humboldt County area where the Jerry Crew stuff was happening. The behavior in that area kind of notates that those things didn't particularly enjoy the heavy equipment there either, right? So so there is some validity to this story that that's interesting. You're going to have to do a review on it when you're finished with it, so we can get it out there. Maybe
absolutely.
get more copies of this book. And folks, I know a couple publishers out there that are really going heavy on trying to get the rights to books and get some books out there. So if you're an author, email me squatchexperience@gmail.com, and we'll get you in touch with them so we can start getting some books reprinted. That way, you're not having to pay $300 to $500 bucks.
He's no longer with us, so
right.
I'll get a Ouija board and get permission. I'll figure it out. Don't worry. Like, that's in bad taste. I'm sorry. I didn't even hear that.
No.
It sounded like
What did Bake say?
sounded like James Baker was mooing.
Buy my book.
Oh, buy my book. That's somebody else that's beloved in the community reaching out to us from beyond the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Not Eric Beckyard. Sorry.
No, you had to throw that in there.
I did. I did. I would almost feel bad.
No,
But I won. That's right, I did.
Yep, and
Sorry.
here we go again. This
But
just
it's the
about
truth.
makes every show. I won, he's dead.
Well, you know what's interesting is, Henry, I don't know if you were on Facebook today, but if you saw Henry Franzoni post one of the programs from one of the Bigfoot conferences, I'll see if I can find it here real quick just to get some reference. And the names that were on this program from this conference, man, it was pretty awesome. I'll put it up on the website. It was the program from the 1997 Sasquatch Symposium in British Columbia. The International Sasquatch Symposium. And some of the speakers, like, they had this broken up pretty ingeniously. They had a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday night show. And Saturday night, it seems like they gave it up to the more paranormal aspect. Sasquatch, a paranormal creature. And the speakers they had in that time was Kawani Lasparitis. I think Eric Beckard was there chasing somebody around too. But listen to this. Listen to some of these other speakers and guests they had there that were the non-paranormal. They had Barbara Butler Wasson, Henry, at that conference.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Cliff Cook, Jody Cook, Skip Frombach. If you remember Skip, we talked to him years ago on Sasquatch Experience. He had a really interesting encounter where the one rolled down the hill. It was on Unsolved Mysteries. You remember that?
Yeah, I'm friends with Skip on Facebook. Yeah, he's a good guy.
still, yeah, I am too, I believe. A good dude. He was always very pleasant to us. I know at times he could have been adversarial with people, but you got to remember, he took a lot of flack for a long time about some of his sightings, and he had some paranormal aspects to some things, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater there. He had a really interesting Bigfoot sighting. Scott Harriet, Henry.
Scott, yeah.
Yeah. Don Keating, John Kirk, Dr. Krantz.
He had an interesting video encounter.
Who was that?
Yeah.
Who had an interesting encounter, Henry? I'm sorry.
I said Scott Harriet. Harriet had a very interesting video encounter. He and Daryl Owen.
Daryl Owens, yeah. In fact, I just remember going back to that time where he showed the video at the East Coast Bigfoot Conference up on the screen. He showed Journey Toward Squatchdom, which is still one of the best documentaries on Bigfoot out there because it's so true to what we do. And Daryl Owens and the emotional reaction he had to his sighting. You know, I always go back to this. That's one of the ways you almost kind of put that litmus test is the people, Vance, that, have that, emotional response to it, that it becomes so real and so vivid that, it invokes that, emotional pull. That's hard to replicate sometimes unless you're going up for an Oscar. And look, I've seen some Oscar actors that don't have those kind of chops.
Right. No, very true. Very true.
All right, guys, here. We got to take our quick break here. We got some news coming up for us here. Stranger Than Fiction news brought to you by our man in the corner there, Vanny Boo Boo. This is your chance to go buy some Dr. Squatch soap. Smoke them if you got them. Get rid of that skunk ape with some Dr. Squatch.
Yeah, there it is.
And guys, we'll be right back right after this.
Yes, it's the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction, news and stories. Brought to you by Dr. Squatch Soap. 100% handmade, 100% money back guarantee. Just visit Dr. Squatch for some huge savings. And our patrons. Become a patron for as little as $2 and become part of the experience. Just visit patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience. Chinese researchers have unveiled an ancient skull that could belong to a completely new species of human. The team has claimed it's our closest evolutionary relative among known species of ancient human, such as Neanderthal and Homo erectus. Nicknamed Dragon Man, the specimen represents a human group that lived in East Asia at least 146,000 years ago. It was found at Harbin, northeast China, in 1933, but only came to the attention of scientists more recently. One of the United Kingdom's leading experts in human evolution, Professor Chris Stringer from London's Natural History Museum, was a member of the research team. In terms of fossils in the last million years, this is one of the most important yet discovered, he told the BBC. He's quoted as saying, "What you have here is a separate branch of humanity that is not on its way to becoming Homo sapiens, but represents a long separate lineage which evolved in the region for several 100,000 years and eventually went extinct." Source, the BBC. And back on June 25th, a Kansas teenager fishing in Oklahoma broke a world record when he reeled in a 164-pound paddlefish. Grant Rader, a Wichita teenager who took a fishing trip to Oklahoma to celebrate his high school graduation, reeled in the massive paddlefish while angling at Keystone Lake near Tulsa. The Oklahoma Department of Wildlife and Conservation said the 164-pound fish is a new world record, taking the title from a 151.9-pound paddlefish reeled in by Corey Waters of Ochalata, Oklahoma. Source, the UPI. And a team of emergency rescue divers were flummoxed after responding to the scene of a nude, drowning woman, only to discover it was actually a life-size floating love doll. This is a family-friendly show, right? The uproarious gaffe was chronicled on Twitter and believed that she was witnessing a real-life rescue in Japan's northeast coast. While filming a fishing video, I thought a dead body floating in the water had washed up, but it was just a blow-up doll. Source, Fox News. And another case of bad habituation. A woman is charged for feeding rats that exacerbated the rodent issue. Out of Cranston, Rhode Island, a woman was charged with allegedly violating a Rhode Island city ordinance against feeding wild animals. The 55-year-old woman's neighbors blame her for exasperating the rodent problem in Cranston. Last week, a publication captured several nocturnal rats active in the middle of the day. Neighbors say that's even worse during the night. The woman and her parents who own the home pleaded not guilty Thursday. Outside the courthouse, she told reporters that she's being charged for feeding fowl birds and ducks. Quote, "Who would have known just loving animals gets you into so much trouble," she said. Anthony Moretti, Director of Administration for Mayor Ken Hopkins, said he saw more than 20 rats in a carport at the woman's home. He said it will take months to get the problem under control. Source, SF Gate. And get this one. Larger than a football field and still growing. A sinkhole has swallowed one house and 2 dogs. A large sinkhole has been growing at a farm in Mexico since May. It's already swallowed a house and 2 dogs that had to be rescued from the hole last week. Source, NPR. And police break up an exorcism at a Pennsylvania Home Depot. Police in Lackawanna County broke up an exorcism in the lumber aisle of a home improvement store Monday. Details are scarce on just what was going on inside the Home Depot on Commerce Drive in Dickens City Monday afternoon. but police were called around 3:26 p.m. to escort several people out of the store for bad behavior. According to reports, the exorcism was being held for trees that had been turned into lumber. Source, Penville.com. Thanks so much for listening to this edition of the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction, News and Stories. And now, let me push the Cobalt microphone back over to you guys.
Well, I was not at that Home Depot and I was not asked to leave. Just saying. That happened about an hour and 20 minutes from us in Dixon City. Interesting, because I have a couple friends that are general managers of stores up in that area, and I said, if that ever happens again, call me before you call the police.
Right. Yeah,
please.
That would be good.
How about it? Very interesting to hold an exorcism at a Home Depot.
Yeah, well, it is Stranger Than Fiction news, so,
Well, hey, and it is, and I'm glad you tackle those topics. How about the rats, too?
I was more intrigued with the drowned naked woman, but that's okay.
Well, death is usually not my thing unless it's, somebody I mention nearly about every show. But as I was saying, just very interesting articles you chose for tonight, Vance. But I know there's something you wanted to talk about, so I'll throw the microphone back to you, Mr. Cobalt.
Well, I want to talk, since this is on my mind, about actually one of my favorite videos. And again, kind of like the Patterson-Gimlin film, it hasn't been proven a hoax. It hasn't been proven to be real. But I find the similarity between the two absolutely fascinating, because I see a lot of physical features that are very representative of each other, and that would be the Independence Day footage. Now, there's some blank spots with this video because A, we don't know who took it, B, we do not know the location, and C, the last posting I could see was 2016, but I'm not exactly sure if that's exactly when it was shot. But it's interesting, and everybody, or if some of you have not seen the Independence Day footage, and not to be confused, because I do it all the time, I confuse Memorial Day and Independence Day footage. Yeah, I've done it so many times where I'm talking about one and when I meant the other. And the Independence Day footage. And if you want to show it, we can get some opinions. But it happens to be one of my favorites. And I'm on the fence, but I'm falling over the fence to the fact that it seems real to me.
Before I play this, I just want the folks listening to the podcast version of the show who aren't seeing this via video, I will put a link to the footage in the show notes so you can reference it at this time. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go ahead and play that. And Vance, make sure to unmute yourself so you can do some commentary so you can tell us exactly what we're looking at through this. Okay, Here we go, folks. Bigfoot Independent.
Okay, so as this footage is, whoever is filming this, you can hear background noise, but there's no commentary. Which leads me to believe, and we're going to zoom in a little bit on this image here of what you're watching. What it leads me to believe is that this individual, man, woman, whoever, was by themselves. And maybe that's why there is no commentary as to what's being watched. But you'll see the being pop up behind this rock here, and then pick up what looks to be a juvenile. Maybe beyond juvenile, it could be, an infant. And you make up your own mind. I don't want to tell you what you need to see. I just see a great similarity in the buttocks from Patty to this film. And I believe this is video, not film.
Yeah, Vance, is it possible that what we're looking at here is filmed at a gorilla sanctuary?
That doesn't look like a gorilla to me. It just doesn't, and I don't know, because I would have thought by now somebody would have raised that flag to go, hey, this scenery looks just like that Independence Day footage.
But in one moment, though, it looks like it does go quadrupedal for a second.
Right, that's true. I'm not going to say I'm at a loss. It seems to me it's interesting. It's the buttocks that is so similar to Patty.
Is there enough? Well, even in the face, you look at that, it has some of the same face proportions.
Right.
But when you look at man, it just doesn't look like there's a lot of movement in the face, like a lot of facial feature moving.
Right.
I don't know. Like, you could go many different ways with that, man. That's kind of sketchy, but at the same time, why throw the baby in there? And is there enough movement with the... And I'll play that one more time.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean by... you're throwing an infant in there. Is that done for dramatic effect? I don't know.
Yeah, right? Like...
But it would make sense if there was a person approaching with a camera and took it as a threat, and the little one was, playing behind the rock as a, protected nursery, and mama sees it and says, nope, we're not going to have this.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, to me, you could go either way with it.
Right. This happens to be one of my favorite videos, though, that I like to show people. And I know that we can't freeze frame it, but when you see this creature or entity walking away, the buttocks is so similar to what you see in the PG film.
Kind of how it moves, too. It kind of looks like it has that locked knee. And I'd have to watch it over and over and freeze it up. And I just don't have that technology available to us right here at the moment.
Right. But the face, very similar.
Yeah, it is.
Looking to see what you're doing. What kind of a threat are you? And again, I have been in a situation, I'm not making this about me, but I've been in a situation where I've had my handheld device and I was video recording coyotes, and unexpectedly, and they came within close proximity. I was by myself. I wasn't giving any dialogue to my phone. I'm having the dialogue in my head, and maybe that's what's happening here. He could be screaming to himself, or she, whoever recorded this. And that's one thing that kind of leads me the other way, that there is just not enough information about this clip that we're watching, the location, who the individual was. But it clearly, if that was a hoax and you wanted to make money, then why wouldn't you have put any publicity about yourself, that you captured it and the location? None of that happened. It was just administered. Is it worth, going through that effort just for that hoax? Who's to say? I'm not a hoaxer, so I don't know how they work or how they think.
Henry, what do you think?
I'm very much on the fence with this footage. It looks good. I'm not going to say it looks bad. I mean, it really does look good. And I like the footage. But there's not enough information on it one way or the other to say, oh, yes, it's real, or yes, it's a hoax.
I think the only problem I have with it is the lack of facial feature movement. That's all. Bake, what do you think?
I look at this footage, and I've never seen it before, but I really feel video game CGI. The way the background is, the way the movement is, the way everything is, it almost feels like somebody created that on a computer.
Can you bring us closer to you, Bake? We're not hearing you well.
Oh, maybe I'm on the...
There you go.
Maybe I'm on the wrong side on this, but I'll tell you what. When I look at it, I look at the background, I look at the shading, I look at the beginning. I see how it's kind of a shape that moves from place to place. I feel video game CGI. Like it really feels like somebody took a clip from something and added that to it, because it seems like it's kind of like in the beginning it's kind of an ape-like creature, and then it goes into shadows. But like, you look at the rocks, you look at the trees, you look at everything, it just seems too perfect. Like it's not like there's a focus and an unfocus and whatever. It looks like when you watch like Big Game Hunter, and you got it on a really nice TV.
If I can find, I think Thinker Thunker did a video on this too, did he not?
Yes, he did.
So if I can find that link, I'll post it as well so folks can see his take. I like his takes on things. And I know everybody's got their own opinion, but he makes it a little bit more tangible for me.
Right. Because he's not sold on Bigfoot on everything, and he does break it down so that he doesn't look like an ass either. Henry, I don't know how familiar you are with Independence Day footage, but I'm going to say at least 10 years that I've been seen this video. So I know it's at least 10 years old. And, you know, you're not the first bake to bring up the CGI thing. Other people and skeptics have said, oh, I can see a zipper on the back and it looks like a hood. And okay,
Well,
I appreciate all those takes on it.
I don't think there's a zipper or hood. I think it's, like I said, is if you look at the video and you kind of look at the shading and the different things and like that, there's just there's an unnatural feel to it.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's
you know, like it'd be like if we went out in the woods and took a picture, a video that went straight across, it wouldn't seem that seemed like the colors were just right and you know, like it looked like somebody touched it up. And I just feel like if you watched them, you know, like if you ever watched like you watch some of these video games where they're just a CGI world. You know, we're not talking World of Warcraft, but we're talking like, you know, a high-end video game, like maybe Breath of the Wild or something that has like a really good-looking CGI, but yet, you know, and then they added it, you know.
But there's been, on top of that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sean, but top of that, if it were CGI, I think it would have been broken down by now.
Me too.
Because there are so many people that have the equipment and the researchability, and it's still neither proclaimed as hoax or factual. And you know, you can break down CGI through equipment, and you can see, oh no, it's definitely CGI. And okay, you throw that one in the trash, that's a hoax. This one has not. But that's where I came back with
piece of information I didn't have. So I mean, but just from my first time seeing it, that's just kind of pops out that a lot of that was just a little perfect.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable.
No, and you talk about you know, CGI being able to break things down. If you watch that documentary, I think it's called Sir No Face. It's like all over the streaming sites. It's a ghost hunting documentary. They're doing some work, I think, in Australia and New Zealand. And one of the scenes in the footage that they take is really compelling, and they had it broken down by special effects people, and it couldn't be you know, proven to be CGI. It was, in fact, it could be disproven to be CGI. It was just really interesting. And it's kind of a scenario we have here. I mean, it could be done. You'd have to have somebody with some experience in the technology to do it. I would be anxious to see what that turns out to be. I don't believe it to be CGI. I just don't think it is more I don't know. To me, I lean towards someone in a suit, but I don't know. You throw an infant in there. The reason that makes me say that, Vance, is the lack of expression on face.
Right.
And you don't really see a whole lot of infant movement that couldn't be independent of the person carrying it.
No,
you know,
but and that's a good point, right?
Here you go. Like those, but it's still a very interesting piece of footage.
Right. And I didn't see a whole lot of facial expression either on Patty.
No, and you don't, right? And
so,
you don't see any on Memorial Day, so
right, exactly. Well, yeah, but at least for some of the footage that you see, that you get a little bit better of a facial feature. I don't see a whole lot. Now, when you have witness encounters, you know, there's teeth that are being shown. There's you know, the grunting and so on. And here again, we don't see any of that. So, you know, does that make it tangible or not? I don't know.
Well, you know, it's a good point. And we talked about this weeks ago on the show where, you know, as researchers, we've put enough information out there through sighting reports and our own retelling of stories. You could fabricate a good hoax these days. It's not impossible. And when you go and listen to a lot of these shows, a lot of the similarities happen in what you're seeing, which is either two things. Somebody saw something that's real or somebody's full of shit, right? They're two diametrically you know, opposite ends of the spectrum, but they all are one piece of the same puzzle. Like you either, and we put that information out there where you could really go and make a great hoax sighting and fabricated video if you really wanted to.
Right.
And
please don't
do it. I'm not saying go ahead, but the information's been out there where you could. Like, but we go back to the book we've talked about at the beginning. And again, you can make the same compelling arguments when you're writing a book about this. You can fabricate entire sightings to load books up. In fact, we're going to have a Bigfoot fiction author on the show here in a couple weeks, William Sheehan. He's going to be on the show to talk about some of his stories. Like you could make a whole world of fiction out of all this. And to many people, this is a world of fiction.
Right.
and we've put a lot of that out there. We don't help the cause, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And
Right.
we've made it easier to hoax these things. And if you go back to the book that Henry's talking about, what lends a little bit more credibility to that is a lot of that information wasn't readily available at the time
No.
this guy was publishing.
No.
Right? Who the hell had access to those books that were very hard to get in the 80s? Very hard to get in the 90s. Hell, you have to go on eBay to spend $350 for a copy of some of those books today.
Right.
Right? So the information wasn't always readily available. When you go from Bigfoot video, it's a lot more subjective because so much information's out there. The technology's getting better. Technology's even better than it was in 67 when the Patterson film was shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
To what's available today. But when you put it in the terms of books and at the age and time these books were written,
Right.
it becomes a lot harder.
Right.
And I guess that was the connection we needed for the program tonight, right? To kind of bring it together and put a bow on some of these things.
Well, and going
hard.
back to your point, and Henry, your point too about the similarities, were there, and that was a great question that you asked, are there any similarities from the book from the 1950s, 1970 encounters that are relevant in encounters that happen today? And it seems to be.
Yeah.
Now, and this was long before the PG film was even exposed, and this was a topic, and saying, hey, it all kind of falls into place for credibility on that.
Yeah.
And then you have human encroachment, and maybe that's why sightings drop off in certain areas. And there's so many variables here, but
Well, you got encroachment where they drop off and then they increase, right? It's kind of, again,
Mhm.
twofold there
Mhm.
as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, again, this is our territory, and you people are moving in here, and we want to take back what was our property. I had this
Yeah,
conversation the other night, with a neighbor of mine that, we've got rabbits and raccoons and skunks and birds, and now they have to feed in our lawn. Well, it's because we built here, and this was this was their home, and they haven't gone and moved on, but they just deal with the houses that are now in the way, and they still feed in the lawn.
Well, just same with bears, right?
Mhm.
And, there used to be a time where a bear sighting in my town was very rare. And, I'm sitting here on the couch yesterday enjoying the 4th of July festivities, kicking back and relaxing, and there comes an alert on the neighborhood app, hey, bear sighted up in Grampian Hills. There comes one on somebody's backyard camera just sauntering along the road.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like these things didn't used to happen, but the more we encroach and spread out, the more these things are going to happen.
Right.
And we have to also be cognizant of the fact that could be why we get more Bigfoot sightings today than we did before. People are a lot more mobile. People, there's a lot more access to get to places than what there used to be. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. No, very true. And I would like, just to switch a gear a little bit, but, if anybody wants to email us or put in the comments anything about your opinions regarding the Independence Day video, I'm quick to want to read it and take everybody's take on it, because
Most
it seems
definitely.
like every time it is shown or anytime I see it and people will add comments in other locations, whether it be YouTube or whatever, I find some of the comments to be kind of compelling, going, I never thought of that. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to contribute their idea of what they saw or what they will see on the Independence Day video, and yes, you can find it on YouTube if you are too impatient to wait for Sean and myself and Henry and Bake to put it up. You just look up Independence Day video on YouTube, Bigfoot. Make sure you include Bigfoot on there. And it does come up, and you can watch it yourself over and over and over and come to your conclusion.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll post a link to it in the podcast page, which, the podcast should post tonight after the live show. Not to go back to, some of these things, but we do have a website, SasquatchExperience.com, where you can go and report your sightings and encounters. We do actually investigate. We do have researchers around the country that we network with, researchers around the globe we network with, really. Be glad to get somebody out there to report your sighting. And if you just want us to share it on the air, just send it to us. Go to our website, SasquatchExperience.com, click on Report It, and you can go ahead and send that our way, or even, email us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. It's our social media, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram. We're socially active. You can get us just about everywhere. We enjoy being, and our producer is not showing up on there, but he's asking us, where are the donuts? We ate them in the green room tonight, Brian. Yeah. I'm sorry. We ate them. We didn't have very many to share, and
Bake ate most of them, though.
Yeah. And again, go to the Patreon and help support us. We're going to have a lot more content coming up. One of the things that we're going to talk about is us watching some of your Bigfoot horror movies on a live stream for our Patreons. You'll get commentary from the four of us as we're watching it live, what kind of popcorn we're eating, some kind of, treats, and we'll have a good old time. I think the first one we'll watch, guys, is my favorite, Exists. We'll have some of our commentary so they can listen to it as they watch it themselves. People seem to like that stuff.
Night of the Gargantuans.
War of the Gargantuas we can do, yeah. We are not allowed to do Law and Order SVU. That one's a perennial favorite of friends of ours.
Dun, 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 dun.
Bake and I have the market on that. Guys, any final thoughts or promotions before we go? We do have some conferences coming up. Hocking Hills will be back first weekend of October, and of course the Mothman Festival. That'll happen the weekend of September 16th, I think, that weekend. At least 3 of the 4 of us will be there to promote Sasquatch Experience. Did it again. And, have a good old time. Don't ask us to do a breathalyzer because I can't promise we'll pass. It's a holiday weekend for us, guys. That's our fun time.
Mm-hmm. That is. You'll be driving the golf cart, but that's okay.
Absolutely. Episode
the Squatch
26.
cart. Oops, sorry. Sasquatch cart.
Yeah, stop with the Squatch. Henry, any thoughts from you, buddy?
Apparently not.
Just that I enjoyed doing this, and this is a good show. And did I freeze?
No, you're good. You're back now.
Mm-hmm.
You're live again, buddy.
This was a great idea to do this tonight. Just kind of take a break from guests and kind of give our own thoughts on things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll try to get one more of these in this summer. I know we have a show coming up on Sasquatch and severe weather, which, believe it or not, is me pouring through an assload of data to find sighting reports that happen, and it's not as easy as you think.
Mm-hmm.
So, it may be a good show. It may be a lot more of this. So I guess stay tuned for that show coming in August. Bake, what do you got?
Meteorologist.
Bake, what do you got?
Assload.
Assload.
Well, I got word of the day.
All right. Word of the day there, folks. It's the things you inspire in your friends. Vance?
What did I do?
Nothing. I just want to know if you wanted to throw anything in before we end it.
Oh, there's lots of things I'd like to throw in there, but we'll keep it family friendly.
Oh, good. Okay.
We'll do our best. No, this is a good idea. That way we can all play catch up with each other, get some thoughts, and throw something out there a little bit different. And then, and a big round of applause to our executive producers.
Yes, thank you guys.
Helping
very
us
much
out.
For supporting the show each and every week. Brian Corbin, Tom Mihok, Gail Fredericks, our Patreon executive producers. Folks, if you want to use our show, it's quite simple. Email us and ask us permission. This is protected under Creative Commons. Copyright pending, all that other good stuff. But for more information, go to our website. It should be up by now. If not, it'll be up soon. SasquatchExperience.com/fair use. We don't mind if you use our stuff. We do mind if you don't give us credit. We work really hard to provide our listeners with good quality entertainment. Sometimes the quality lacks, but we always try to make it good. And we thank you all for listening, guys. Again, SasquatchExperience.com. Thanks to our producers. Thanks to you guys. Where can folks find you if they want to get a hold of you guys?
Well, they can find me on Facebook, Vance A. Nesbitt, or on Instagram, Vance_Nesbitt, STFN, Stranger Than Fiction News, but just STFN. So
excellent. Bake, where can folks find you? Just about anywhere they can find me, they know.
Pretty much.
There's probably more than one James Baker out there.
That picture at the post office is not me.
Yes, it is.
There you go. And Henry, you might as well tell them where they can find you.
Henry, we made the 4th on Facebook.
He's the fourth, folks. You can't miss him. I'm Sean Forker. Find me everywhere on social media. Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram. Squatch EXP on Twitter. And Henry, give him those final words.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
Thanks for listening to the Sasquatch Experience, folks. We'll catch you next week with our guest, Amy Boo. Can't wait to get Amy on the show. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, well.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.